Hi and welcome back to my third episode of comparing PlayStation games with Saturn games. And today we will take a look at the anti-gravity race genre. And on the Saturn we will take a look at the Gran Chaser. This was released in Japan on 26th of May 1995. It was called Cyber Speedway in the West, while the original title is Gran Chaser in Japan. And on PlayStation we will take a look at Wipeout. This was released first in Europe on 29th of September 1995. Okay, so we begin with Gran Chaser on the Sega Saturn. And if you look at the title screen, it says Sid Mead, and this is actually quite interesting. The late Sid Mead was involved in this game. For those of you who are not familiar with Sid Mead, he was a designer and artist. He was involved in the Blade Runner movie as well as the Tron movie and many others, and is generally considered as one of the greatest futuristic artists ever. So this is quite cool that he was involved in this game, and I believe he designed the spaceships or the anti-gravity racers. This is also a two-player game. You can play in split screen. You have story mode, you also have free run mode. I'll jump straight into the story mode. This game was released as Cyber Speedway in the West, but I believe the story mode was taken out from the Western version, so you don't get to see these cutscenes. But it's nothing special because it's not fully animated, just kind of like a slideshow with speech. Okay. So we start off here. You have enemies which you can shoot down with bullets. Let's see if you can fire off a bullet here. Oh, I missed him. So yeah, this predates Wipeout by 4 months, I believe. So I remember back in the 90s, in 1995, lots of game magazines, they compared this to Wipeout, and the general consensus was that this is an inferior game compared to Wipeout. And looking back at it, this actually got really lousy reviews. I believe the reviewers at that time went a bit too harsh on this. Of course, it's not at all as smooth as Wipeout, but come on, it's not a lousy game. It plays fairly well. This is a very early Saturn 3D game. At that time, the developers hadn't really got into learning the 3D capabilities of the Saturn. So I think they did a fairly well job. It's not of course, the draw distance is quite short, the same as in Daytona. I think the frame rate is okay, it's decent. It's not fluid 60 frames per second, but I think it's 30 frames per second, which is okay, I believe. But one thing I should mention is that the music with this game is fantastic. The Japanese version, for some reason, they removed this soundtrack for the American version. So if you want to hunt down this game, I strongly recommend you to get the Japanese version, because the soundtrack for this one is much better in the Japanese version. Kind of like that waterfall effect from within the tunnel. You can see the waterfall. Yeah, okay, so this is Gran Chaser. Okay, so this is Wipeout for the Sony PlayStation. This was released on 29th of September 1995. For those of you who remember, this game was actually featured in the Hacker movie, but that was kind of like a different prototype game with far superior graphics, which the PlayStation couldn't handle, obviously. But this was a launch game in Europe for the Sony PlayStation, and I have very fond memories of this game because I played this game in a game kiosk in a video game store a few weeks before the PlayStation launch here in Europe. And if I would count one moment in my entire life when I've been totally floored by I just change the perspective. When I've been totally floored by any video game, that would probably be Wipeout, because I can't remember any other game which just dropped my jaw like Wipeout did back then in 1995. The kids of today, they will never understand the generational leap we made back in 1995. We practically went from Super Mario Kart to this type of graphics. It was astonishing back then, and I have to say the game holds up really well. I mean, it plays really nice. The thing with the early Wipeout games is that you get this sense of hoovering this heavy aircraft, and you get the sense of weight and speed combined in a way which we hadn't seen back then before that. So Wipeout is in many ways, or was in many ways, a unique game when it was released. It was also unique because this was probably the first game ever which felt like it was geared towards the older youth, the adults. I mean, Sony back then, they actually had Wipeout booths in nightclubs in the UK. The soundtrack to this game was made by famous club acts such as Chemical Brothers and Orbital. The design for this game was made by a studio called Designers Republic, which previously had done CD cover art for different kind of artists as well as other companies. So it all came together really nice. The music, the design, the gameplay, it was like a fantastic fusion of everything, the audio and the video, and you had this brand new PlayStation console which played CD quality audio, so you got like proper club music in a game at home, which we hadn't seen at all previously back then. So this was also something totally new. I mean, having proper underground soundtrack at home on our game consoles. So Wipeout was in many ways a pioneering game, and of course it was the start of the franchise. This also was ported to Sega Saturn and PC. The Saturn port is inferior, doesn't look at all as good as this one. But yeah, this is where it all began. Wipeout on the Sony PlayStation back in 1995. And I must say, this game still hooks up really well. I mean, just look at the graphics. This is like almost 30 years old, but it plays, oh man, I'm losing. This plays really well even today. Okay, so that was Wipeout versus Gran Chaser, and for me this is a no-brainer. Wipeout wins in every regard. Visuals, audio, gameplay, attitude, in all regards Wipeout is the clear winner here. So another point for Sony PlayStation. And if you have any comments, suggestions or anything, just drop them in the comment field, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care guys, bye.